All right, so we got an article here talking about the canceled MMO from Microsoft. Now, this particular video game has been making the rounds because people are trying to say that Phil Spencer absolutely loved the game, right? Loved the game, thought it was the greatest thing ever. He couldn't put the controller down. And yet, for some reason, this game still got canceled regardless of that fact. Now we have a little bit of coping and seething of the people, or from the people, I should say, that this game got canceled from. And it says a future has been stolen from many of us, and our community will never experience an amazing game. Microsoft MMO devs respond to cancellation of a project that Phil Spencer reportedly loved. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Zenimax's, canceled MMO, and we're also going to cover the fact of the reason why the game was canceled, because apparently Microsoft canceled Blackbird to focus on the upcoming Fallout game. We're going to get into it. So, again, the cancellation of ZeniMax Online Studios' new game happened earlier this month as part of Microsoft's latest round of layoffs. Nearly 2 weeks after Microsoft announced its intent to lay off roughly 9,000 employees, yet another workplace massacre that saw deep cuts across the company's gaming division. The ZeniMax Online Studios United Union says it is now bargaining with the company over how we move forward following the cancellation of a new MMO that was in development at the studio. You're not going to move forward. You're not going to move forward anytime soon. You're not going to move forward. Here's the deal, right? The reason why I want to talk about the second article in particular is because what's happening in the AAA gaming industry is they have messed around and they have found out way too much now. A lot of these companies, even some of the richest companies in the world, like Microsoft, who clearly all the money in the world is not stopping them from firing over 15,000 people. But, who's keeping track? This company, even with all the money in the world, still has to fire people and still has to cut the bloat, right? Because they just unfortunately messed around and they found out too much. They lost a lot of money from the Xbox division. Sure, Xbox had some wins, but they also had a lot of losses too. And at this point, Game Pass has also been claimed to be not as profitable as initially thought, right? Whether it's profitable or not, we're never going to know because they never release numbers. But at this point, a lot of people believe it to be not profitable, nowhere near what they say it is. But whether it is or it isn't doesn't matter. They are now doubling down on games that they know are going to make them money. This is what a lot of these studios are doing now. They don't have time and they don't have resources anymore to try to make these games that, nobody's going to care about. They are experiencing what happened to Marvel in Phase 4 and Phase 5. When Marvel came off the massive W that was Endgame over the last 10 plus years of building all of that up and all of the money they made doing so, Marvel messed around and found out by introducing basically trash that nobody cared about, and they lost an ungodly amount of money for doing it. The gaming industry in the AAA sector is experiencing the same exact thing, where they have been releasing games that most people didn't want. Sure, there was a banger every now and then. Of course, most of these bangers usually came from Eastern developers, South Korea to be exact. Even China has been killing it in terms of AAA games. But there has been some wins, sure, but there's been a lot of losses. And these losses, unfortunately, have resulted in them having to cancel so many projects that they otherwise would have funded if this was any other year than 2025. They're canceling these side projects and they're focusing only on major projects. So it kind of makes sense that Microsoft would cancel the MMO, right, and focus on Fallout, their brand new Fallout game, whatever that's going to be. It's not too shocking that they would do that. But in any case, let's read what the developers are saying first, and then we'll get into the Fallout news, which I feel like is very important. So earlier this month, Microsoft indefinitely shelved an unannounced MMORPG at ZeniMax Online Studios, which was a shock to the 222 Zosu CWA developers working on the project. The union said in a statement posted to Blue Sky, because of course they want to keep trying to make Blue Sky a thing. I hope they realize that when they post to Blue Sky, all that happens is the screenshot that someone takes of that post that gets put on X gets infinitely more views and quote retweets and everything on X than it ever will on Blue Sky, right? It gets literally no engagement on Blue Sky for the most part, but it gets millions of engagement on another platform that they're trying to avoid. It's hilarious. But anyway, whatever. It has been heartening and validating to see our game mentioned in the press and by players that would have loved to see the results of our work. Undoubtedly, a future has been stolen from many of us, and our community will never get to experience an amazing game. However, despite discussions regarding the status of our employment, the fact is we have not yet been laid off. Well, that's because they're probably going to repurpose them, right? ZeniMax is a studio that is considered still useful to Microsoft. I don't think they're going to lay them off entirely. They might experience some layoffs, but I don't think they're going to lay them off entirely at this point. So you could cope and seethe about this. You could say that they stole your future. You could say whatever. Something like a layoff is inevitable for much of its membership. The fact of its existence has helped soften the blow for impacted employees by sharing resources and information and negotiating the best possible exit terms for people put out of work. So again, they're completely getting killed over there. Where Microsoft has failed to support the talented craftspeople who have generated billions in revenue, our union has stepped up to provide clarity and support. The union said, "It is true that a layoff may be in the future for some of our members. However, as a result of our organizing, we are able to ensure that those impacted will be able to depart with dignity." Dignity, bro. What dignity, man? Like, what the fuck? You're acting like what? These people, I can't, man. I can't. These people are they're so dramatic. But anyway, it's pretty clear that a sign that things aren't going well when the only upside of your situation is that you'll hopefully be allowed to depart with dignity. I agree. So let's talk about why this game was canceled. Okay, so everybody was questioning why Zenimax had to cancel their upcoming MMO. Well, apparently it had to do with more Fallout, which I think is probably the better choice. Microsoft and Bethesda appeared to be all in on more Fallout games. In the latest episode of the Xbox 2 podcast, Jez Corden spoke about Microsoft's decision to cancel ZeniMax Online Studios project Blackbird MMO that had been in development for years. According to Corden, the decision to cancel the game was a situation where Microsoft had to decide if they wanted to continue spending money on a game that may or may not compete with games like World of Warcraft, or would the money be better suited focusing on an established franchise? Do you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? This is literally what I said, word for word. They are not going to want to spend money and time. They don't have it anymore. They don't want to do it on franchises that are unknown. They're going to be doubling down on major franchises and putting all of their investment into those in the hopes that those franchises bring them back to the glory that they were at a few years ago. And then they can maybe F around and found out with something different after that. But as of right now, they are not going to be putting their money into unknown projects. They're going to be focusing on things that they know is going to make them money by having an established player base, hardcore fans, whatever that may be, like Fallout, like Elder Scrolls, games like that. From what I heard, it was a case of trade-offs, and that the program to expand Fallout 5 and just Fallout in general, that's where they decide to make the investments and where the money will be translated into more of a surefire win, Corden said. You see what I'm saying? They're going for the guaranteed W. That's what they're doing. They're going for the guaranteed W. So at this point now, I think it's safe to say that creativity is going to slowly but surely die more than it already has in the AAA scene. They're only going to be going for the safe bets. And it's hilarious because while they're going for the safe bets and still losing mostly, you have the AA scene and the indie scene coming out and being creative and having some massive wins. Like we talked about Peak hitting 5 million copies sold in less than a month. Beautiful thing to witness, right? Schedule 1, another beautiful thing to witness. So this is the time now for indie games and AA games to truly shine through. Now is the time where AAA is just playing the safe bet. Now would be the time. He added that that's been told that Fallout 5 has been greenlit for full production while openly wondering if a new studio could work on a Fallout game. It's worth mentioning, however, that Corden says he doesn't have enough information for a full story on where things stand with Fallout or if they would form a new team to work on the next game in the series. Currently, Bethesda is working on the Elder Scrolls 6 and possibly more DLC for Starfield. As far as Fallout goes, it's been 11 years since Fallout 4 released and nearly 7 since Fallout 76. 7 years. 7 years since it was told to us that we would get 16 times the detail. And we got 16 times the bugs instead. That is so crazy. So you guys can let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that this was the better choice? Do you think that by taking the money away from the MMO and putting it towards the Fallout game, do you think that was the better choice? Or do you think they should have come out with an MMORPG to try to compete with World of Warcraft or any other games that are out there currently like Final Fantasy 14? Do you think they would have even had a chance? I know it's hard to say considering you don't even know about the game, but let me know whatever that may be in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, consider hitting that like button and I'll see you guys on the next one.